The American Revolution ended in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris. The 13 colonies had won their independence from Britain. They were now faced with the task of creating a new government. This was not an easy task. The new nation was fragile and divided. The colonies had different interests and priorities. Some were focused on agriculture, while others were more industrial. They had different views on issues like trade and taxation. There was a need for a unified government that could address these differences. The challenge was to create a system that balanced these diverse interests. The leaders of the new nation knew they needed to act quickly. Without a strong central government, the country could fall into chaos. The Articles of Confederation were introduced as the first attempt at a national government. However, it soon became clear that they were not enough. The Articles of Confederation were ratified in 1781. They created a loose alliance of the 13 states. The central government had very limited powers. It could not tax the states or regulate commerce. This made it difficult to raise funds or enforce laws. The states retained most of the power. They were like independent countries. This led to conflicts and disagreements. There was no strong leadership to resolve these issues. The central government was weak and ineffective. The weaknesses of the Articles became apparent quickly. The government could not pay its debts from the Revolutionary War. It could not defend the nation against foreign threats. There were economic problems and internal unrest. The need for a stronger government became clear. By the mid-1780s, it was evident that the Articles of Confederation were failing. The leaders of the new nation realized that they needed to create a new system of government. This led to the Constitutional Convention of 1787. The Constitutional Convention was called to address the problems with the Articles of Confederation. Delegates from 12 of the 13 states gathered in Philadelphia in May 1787. Rhode Island was the only state that did not send delegates. The goal was to create a stronger and more effective government. The convention was held in secret. The delegates wanted to speak freely without outside interference. They were tasked with revising the Articles, but it soon became clear that a complete overhaul was needed. The decision was made to create a new constitution. The delegates were some of the most prominent figures of the time. They included George Washington, who was elected president of the convention. James Madison, who is often called the father of the Constitution, played a key role. Benjamin Franklin, Alexander Hamilton, and others also made significant contributions. The convention lasted for 4 months. The delegates debated and discussed various issues. They had to balance the interests of large and small states, as well as northern and southern states. The result was a new constitution that would form the basis of the United States government.
The Constitutional Convention brought together some of the brightest minds in America. These delegates were tasked with creating a new system of government. They faced many challenges and disagreements. However, they were united in their goal of creating a stronger and more effective government.
George Washington was a key figure at the convention. His leadership and presence provided stability and confidence. I brought detailed plans and ideas for the new government. My contributions were crucial to the success of the convention.
The delegates worked in committees to address different issues. They debated and discussed various plans and proposals. There were many disagreements and compromises. However, the delegates were committed to finding solutions. They worked tirelessly to create a new constitution. The convention was marked by intense debates and discussions. The delegates had to balance the interests of different states and regions. They also had to address issues like representation, taxation, and the powers of the central government. Despite the challenges, they were able to reach an agreement and create a new constitution.
One of the major debates at the convention was over representation in Congress. The Virginia plan, proposed by me, called for a bicameral legislature. Representation in both houses would be based on population. This plan favored larger states with bigger populations.
The New Jersey plan, proposed by William Patterson, called for a unicameral legislature. Each state would have equal representation regardless of size. This plan favored smaller states. The debate over these two plans was intense and divisive. Both plans had their supporters and opponents. Larger states argued that representation based on population was fairer. Smaller states argued that equal representation protected their interests. The delegates had to find a way to balance these competing interests. The debate over representation was one of the most contentious issues at the convention. It took many weeks of discussion and negotiation to reach a resolution. The solution came in the form of the Great Compromise, which created a bicameral legislature with a mix of both plans. The Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise, was proposed by Roger Sherman. It created a bicameral legislature with two houses. The House of Representatives would be based on population. The Senate would have equal representation for each state. This compromise balanced the interests of both large and small states. It allowed for proportional representation in one house and equal representation in the other. This solution was acceptable to both sides and helped to move the convention forward. The Great Compromise was a turning point in the convention. It resolved one of the most contentious issues and allowed the delegates to focus on other important matters. It demonstrated the importance of compromise and negotiation in the creation of the new government. The success of the Great Compromise set the stage for further agreements. It showed that the delegates could find solutions to difficult problems. This spirit of compromise and cooperation was essential to the success of the convention and the creation of the new Constitution. Another major issue at the convention was the question of slavery and representation. Southern states wanted to count enslaved people as part of their population for representation in Congress. Northern states opposed this idea. The result was the 3/5 Compromise. The 3/5 Compromise allowed states to count 3/5 of their enslaved population for representation and taxation purposes. This agreement was controversial and sparked heated debates. It was a compromise between the interests of northern and southern states. The compromise was seen as a necessary evil to ensure the success of the convention. It allowed the delegates to move forward and create a new constitution. However, it also highlighted the deep divisions and moral conflicts within the new nation. The 3/5 Compromise had lasting implications. It affected representation in Congress and the balance of power between northern and southern states. It also set the stage for future conflicts over slavery. Despite its controversial nature, it was a crucial part of the constitutional framework. Section 8. The introduction of the Bill of Rights. After the Constitution was drafted, there were concerns about the lack of protections for individual rights. The result was the introduction of the Bill of Rights.
The Bill of Rights consists of the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They were introduced by James Madison and ratified in 1791. It continues to protect the rights and freedoms of individuals.
Section 9. The Principles of the Constitution, Separation of Powers. The Constitution is based on several key principles. One of the most important is the separation of powers. This principle divides the government into three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial. Each branch has its own powers and responsibilities.
The legislative branch, consisting of Congress, makes the laws. The executive branch, led by the President, enforces the laws. The judicial branch, headed by the Supreme Court, interprets the laws. This system of checks and balances ensures that no one branch becomes too powerful.
The separation of powers is designed to prevent the abuse of power. It ensures that each branch can check the actions of the others. This creates a balance of power and protects the rights of individuals.
The principle of separation of powers is a fundamental part of the Constitution. The separation of powers has been a key factor in the stability and success of the American government. It has allowed for a system of government that is both effective and accountable. This principle continues to be a cornerstone of the U.S. Constitution.
Section 10. The Principles of the Constitution, Federalism, and Popular Sovereignty. Another key principle of the Constitution is federalism. This principle divides power between the national government and the states. It ensures both levels of government have their own responsibilities. Popular sovereignty is another important principle. The power of the government comes from the people. This principle is reflected in the preamble of the Constitution. Section 11. The ratification process and the Constitution's legacy. The ratification of the Constitution was a challenging process. It required the approval of 9 out of the 13 states. There were many debates and disagreements over the new Constitution.
The Federalists supported the Constitution, while the Anti-Federalists opposed it. The Federalist Papers, written by Hamilton, Madison, and Jay, played a key role. The Constitution was finally ratified in 1788. It created a new system of government that has endured for over 2 centuries. It continues to be the foundation of American government and society. The legacy of the Constitution is profound. It has protected the rights and freedoms of individuals.